I'm Eddie Chumney of Hebraic Heritage Ministries, and we welcome you to this week's Focus Israel Report. In this week's report, we're going to look at the possibility of war in the Middle East regarding either Syria or Iran. Earlier in November, the International Atomic Energy Agency issued a report regarding Iran's nuclear program. In that report, they indicated that Iran was near having the capability of having a nuclear weapon. As a result, the United States has decided to put additional economic sanctions on Iran, but in doing so, it is not going to target Iran's central bank. In response to these sanctions, Russia said that additional sanctions on Iran are unacceptable. Israel, meanwhile, was seeking to cooperate with various Arab nations in a possible attack against Iran's nuclear program. Because of the pressure that is being put on Iran from Western nations as well as Israel, Iran is trying to decide the best way for it to respond. Supreme ruler Ayatollah Khomeini is contemplating announcing to the world that Iran has already acquired nuclear weapons. However, other elements of the Iranian government do not believe that this is the best way to handle the situation. In evaluation of the present situation, Israel has decided that it only has 6 months before it will not be able to launch a military strike against Iran to prevent it from getting nuclear weapons. Intelligence reports coming from the news agency Debka indicate that the United States is willing to consider attacking Iran's nuclear program in the fall of 2012. As a result, there is presently a 6-month difference between when Israel believes it will run out of time to attack Iran, which is in the next 6 months, versus the time frame that the United States believes it has, which is the end of the fall of 2012. Because of the brutal crackdown of protesters regarding the oppression by the Syrian government of Bashar Assad, Western nations are seeking to impose economic sanctions upon Syria. Russia is against intervention by the West against Syria like it did in Libya. As a result, Russia is trying to militarily protect Syria from any Western intervention. In doing so, Russia has sent Syria its advanced S-300 missiles, and Russian warships are stationed off the Syrian coast. The United States is also preparing for possible war in the Middle East, as it has its own aircraft carriers stationed in the Mediterranean as well as the Persian Gulf. Therefore, there is intense war preparations going on because of the seriousness of the situation with Syria and Iran. Turkey, meanwhile, says that it will not allow intervention in Syria's internal affairs, and it will try to prevent an environment where Turkey would be aiding in the intervention of entities who would try to get involved with the Syrian crisis. So this is a summary of what we're going to be covering in this week's news update. Let's now look at some of the details of these articles. The first one is the United States is going to be putting additional economic sanctions on Iran, but it will not put these sanctions on Iran's central bank. The United States will name Iran as well as its central bank as a primary money laundering concern, but will not place sanctions directly on the bank, a senior Treasury Department official said. U.S. officials have been considering action against the Central Bank of Iran, but became concerned that a full sanction could have a negative effect on the world economy because of its potential impact on oil prices. Russia views additional sanctions on Iran as being unacceptable. From the Jerusalem Post, Russia's foreign ministry denounced new U.S. economic sanctions against Iran, saying that they are unacceptable and contrary to international law. Israel, meanwhile, is seeking to cooperate with various Arab countries regarding a possible attack against Iran's nuclear program. From the Jerusalem Post, it is reported that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that relations were being expanded with some Arab countries, adding fuel to speculation that the countries in question were cooperating with Israel regarding Iran's nuclear program. During a press conference with Romanian Prime Minister Emil Bach, Netanyahu said, "We welcome the fact that we have the ability to expand these newfound friendships in the region, as we discussed with some of the Arab countries, but also outside the region by tightening the bonds with countries like Romania, who are our natural allies." Netanyahu did not elaborate on which newfound friendships he was referring to among Arab countries. And asked about his comment, one Israeli official said that because of the Iranian nuclear threat, we have had contacts recently with countries in the region who share our concern about Iran's nuclear program. The official refused to name the countries, though in recent months there's been speculation that Israel was coordinating moves regarding stopping Iran's nuclear program with Saudi Arabia and several other Gulf Arab states. Iran, meanwhile, is trying to decide how they're going to respond to these international pressures. One idea is that Supreme Ruler Ayatollah Khomeini believes that Iran should announce that they have already acquired nuclear weapons. Iran is preparing to stun the world with the revelation that it has produced its first nuclear weapon and qualifies for the status of a nuclear power. Reporting this from Iranian and intelligence sources, Debka cites some of them as predicting that Iran may drop this bombshell in a few days. The highest levels of the Iranian regime are still locked in an intense debate over if and when it should make this announcement. But Ayatollah Khomeini is said to have made up his mind. He's confident that the shock value of an Iranian nuclear admission will make the world reverse the economic sanctions and military threats that they have imposed against Iran. While Khomeini's inner circle is behind the supreme ruler, the National Security Council and its chairman, Saeed Jalili, are against coming out of the nuclear closet. In a detailed report, they recommended that Iran continue to deny its nuclear program and say that it only has peaceful purposes. If they are overruled, they advise careful tactical steps to be taken to pave the way for full disclosure of the bomb program. In any case, not all the technical obstacles for practically manufacturing Iran's first nuclear weapon has been overcome. For instance, the detonator for triggering a chain reaction that causes a nuclear explosion has been assembled but not tested. The first experiment was scheduled for mid-November, but it had to be postponed. If it would have been carried out, it would have confirmed the International Atomic Energy Agency's allegations that were released on November the 8th that Iran is working on a nuclear program. Israel, meanwhile, believes that it only has a 6-month window to prevent Iran from having a nuclear bomb. Silence has descended on Israel's airwaves after weeks of contentious debate over whether or not Israel should resort to military action to preempt a nuclear-armed Iran. On November the 18th, U.S. Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta warned that an Israeli attack on Iran would set back its nuclear program by only 1 or 2 years at most. The Israeli news reporting service Debka says that Israeli leaders have come to a final decision, which is to attack Iran's nuclear program within the next 6 months, or up until the end of June of 2012, barring unforeseen changes in Iran. The Israeli government came to its decision this week after the Obama administration's fresh round of sanctions against Iran's energy and banking sectors did not target Iran's central bank, a step that could have brought down Iran's financial and energy sectors. It was avoided out of concern that sanctions going all the way would send oil prices skyrocketing and cause the collapse of the world economy. There is still one international test to pass before Israel decides to attack Iran. In late March or early April of 2012, the Board of Governors of the International Atomic Energy Agency meets in Vienna for another review of the Iranian nuclear program. Israel wasn't completely satisfied with the recommendation from the IAEA, where it stated on November the 20th that it believed that intensive dialogue should be done to resolve the Iranian crisis. In confidential contacts this week, the United States tried assuring Israel that the IAEA was constrained and time is needed to evaluate its report, and it needed until the spring to determine exactly what is the present situation. This was one of the messages relayed to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu by U.S. Undersecretary of State William Burns in a recent visit to Israel. In an interview with CNN on November the 20th, Israeli Defense Minister Ehud Barak said, "It's true that it won't take 3 years for Iran to develop a nuclear bomb. Most likely it will be within 9 months. Barak said that time is short for the world to do anything about preventing Iran's nuclear program because Iran is making its nuclear project redundant. When asked about a deadline in which Israel may strike Iran's nuclear program, Barak said, "I cannot tell you for sure, nor can I predict whether it's 6 months or 9 months, but it's not 2 or 3 years." Barak's statements indicate that Israel seems to be willing to attack Iran within the coming 6 months, and it is not eager to cooperate with the United States in its stalling tactics regarding the possibility of bombing Iran. Israel fears that the United States will hold back from wanting to attack Iran until the present economic sanctions are imposed and a determination is made to whether they are effective. Ehud Barak rejected this view by saying that the time frame to attack Iran is not dictated by America or Israel, but by Iran's progress toward developing a nuclear weapon. Debka reported on November the 4th that the United States has decided to attack the Iranian nuclear program by the fall of 2012. Therefore, the difference in time that Israel sees that it has to prevent an Iran nuclear program from being fully operational, and when the United States sees how long they have, the difference between the two is now 6 months in time. Day-to-day changes in the circumstances in the region could change these plans that both the United States and Israel has regarding dealing with Iran's nuclear program. In the past year, there have been large-scale protests in Syria against the oppression by Syrian President Bashar Assad against his people. In order to try to discourage Western intervention, Russia has decided to send Syria advanced S-300 missiles. Because of the tensions in both Syria and Iran, Russian and U.S. warships are stationed in the Mediterranean and in the Persian Gulf. Russia and the United States adopted aggressive measures on November the 12th when 2 American aircraft carriers, the USS Bush and the USS Stennis, sailed through the Strait of Hormuz side by side and took up position opposite the Iranian coast. On November the 17th, the Syrian news agency reported 3 Russian naval vessels on the Mediterranean were headed towards Syria. Well, that's going to conclude this week's Focus Israel report. In this report, we looked at the tensions in the Middle East regarding the possibility of war breaking out in Syria and in Iran. Until we do it again, Shalom in Yeshua the Messiah. Amen.